Hello. So I am fantasy author SF Henne. My entry into SPFBO is this guy. This is The Last Lunar Witch, which is book one in a 7-book series. It is an urban fantasy, but it is set in an alternate world. So this book, we follow Nissa, who is a witch with broken magic. She heads to the big city to try and find a way to suppress her wild magic so that she can keep her alchemy. I am diving straight into this. We are going to be starting at chapter 13, which is about page 100. So to give a bit of context of where we are, Nissa found a potion that was meant to help harness her magic rather than suppress it. And just before this chapter, she drank it after one of her enforcer friends was gravely injured, but it doesn't seem to have worked. So we're just going to dive in. Sweat trickled down my back, while my legs protested the extra weight. My free hand clutched my conduit, even though the healing spell had sapped my magical reserves. While I still felt a twinge of frustration at my weakness, I couldn't ignore the fact that my magic had made a difference. For the first time in years, I yearned for the sun to rise. "Can I ask you a question?" Reineck asked. I nodded, thankful to fill the silence. "Does it always hurt?" "For me, yeah," I admitted. Some witch I was. I can manage simple spells, although they don't always work the way I intended. But the more powerful ones? If I push too hard, it causes pain, and the spell is still weak. It's not like that for other witches, though they can strain themselves if they force too much magic out or attempt a spell far above their skill level. It was pretty amazing, Reineck said. My cheeks warmed at his compliment. We all have our strengths and limitations. It doesn't make you any less of a witch. You came through when it mattered. I couldn't have asked for more. I glanced up at him. Sweat beaded on his forehead, and expression was strained. But I didn't sense deceit. No witch would ever utter those words to me. At least here, I held value. "Thank you," I said, failing to suppress a smile. "That means a lot. It's frustrating sometimes. I watch the other witches effortlessly cast spells while I still struggle with the basics." Renna gave my shoulder a reassuring squeeze. "We each walk our own path, face our own challenges. Your magic might work differently, but that doesn't make it any less valuable. You bring your own special skills and capability to the table, and I have complete faith in you." "You're just saying that because I rescued you." I smirked at him. "That does help." He chuckled, then winced with a hand on his wound. "What were you doing out here?" I asked, hoping to distract him from the pain. This was supposed to be a safe neighborhood. "We were on a routine patrol and heard reports of gang activity. Then we ended up ambushed by demon spawn. I can't believe they're here in the city. After East Vale, I thought the Vale was being closely monitored." The authorities feared a repeat and worried the Vale's protection had weakened after standing for hundreds of years. So where were they? How could they have allowed this to happen? I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes. We were caught off guard, overwhelmed by the numbers, but we killed most of them. Wait, how many were there? 6. 6! I choked on the number. That many, and all in one group? Why isn't there a squad from the UMC? The first hints of a tear should have triggered a response team. How could so many demon spawn have slipped through undetected? Or had they found another way into our realm? Rennick shrugged. "I alerted HQ, and they'll send a report to the UMC. This way," he nodded down a side street. "As he patrolled this area, I trusted him to guide us. I was completely lost. This part of town had narrow roads and old, run-down buildings. I scrutinized every shadow, searching for movement. My paranoia was slipping through, and I caught glimpses out of the corner of my eye, each one sending a shiver down my spine." "Just one more block," Reineck murmured. Had he sensed the foreboding atmosphere too? I wanted to ask how close we were to the healer, but I bit my lip to keep the words in. Reineck's breathing had become more ragged. He didn't need the extra exertion. We shuffled down the street as fast as we could, but Reineck was flagging, and my body voiced its objections. I attempted to tread with light steps, but in the silence of early morning, even the slightest sound seemed amplified. Reineck twisted and glanced behind us, his body tensed. Before I could look, he hastened our pace and steered us down an alley. We hurried around the corner, Reineck urging us into a run, or at least the best he could manage with his injuries. His weight jarred my bones with each lumbering stride, but I concentrated on keeping us moving. My heart pounded, each breath now a ragged gasp. I didn't spot anyone behind us, but the sensation of being watched only intensified as we ran through the dimly lit alley. Where was the fox? I'd been so focused on Reinach, I hadn't noticed when they'd disappeared. Hopefully, they'd run to safety. Inky darkness clung to the brick walls. The feeble light from the street behind was unable to reach us here. I stole another glance back, and my stomach sank. Figures slipped into the alley behind us, cutting off any chance of escape. At least they weren't demon spawn. But where in the hells had they come from? Who are they? I hissed. Local gang, he grunted. Mix of races, rarely have magic, but they're armed. I pushed harder, trying not to think about their weapons. Rennick cursed under his breath, and we skidded to a stop before we crashed into a chain-link fence that barred our way. He yanked on the gate with frustration, causing the padlock to rattle. Panic gripped my throat as I scanned the area, desperate for a way out. The fence was near 8 feet tall and adorned with menacing barbed wire. Neither of us stood a chance at scaling it. I squeezed my eyes closed, my mind racing with spells and incantations as I scoured my knowledge for a solution. But I'd never cut through metal before. Didn't think we'd let you off that easy, eh, Enforcer? A mocking voice taunted. Jeers echoed off the wall, and Reinach pushed me behind him. Tension rippled off his body as he turned to confront the speaker. We were outnumbered, but despite his weakened state, he was still trying to protect me. Trapped. The word reverberated through my mind. A wave of fear crashed over me, scattering my thoughts like leaves in a hurricane. I was a witch, and I couldn't even conjure a spell to save us. Failure and frustration constricted my throat. Climb the fence, Reinach hissed under his breath. But you can't climb, his voice brooked no argument. Reinach straightened to his full height, projecting an air of strength, and pushed me towards the fence. I don't want trouble, he called out. I clung to the fence, my gaze locked on the barbed wire. Could I climb over before they attacked? My heart squeezed. No. The real question was, could I leave my friend behind? Even injured, Reinach hadn't hesitated to defend me. But he was my friend, and I refused to sacrifice him so I could escape. How was my life any more valuable than his? I adjusted my position to peer around Reinach's large frame. The figures advanced towards us, but the light behind them made it difficult to identify who or what they were. The effects of the pick-me-up potion were fading. Time was running out. I pulled out my potions. They were all we had. They'd buy us time, but to do what? Left hand is a smoke bomb, I whispered, pushing a vial into his palm. Right hand stinging nettle. I withdrew my conduit and glared at the enemy, who'd stopped too far away for me to see their numbers. Could I manage to cast a few concussive blasts? It might scare them off or force them to retreat. And Reinach had dealt with the demon swan earlier. He must have a weapon hidden somewhere. Don't want trouble, the thug drawled, his arrogance grating on my nerves. That may be, but we can't just let an enforcer traipse through our territory, especially after you killed our friends. Friends? Did he mean the demon spawn? He inched forward, as if daring Reinach to attack. If they moved a bit closer, I could hit two with one well-placed blast. And you bought us a little friend. Shit. She's not involved in this, Reinach snapped. Ah, but she is. Reinach pushed me back as the thugs closed in, but I resisted, knowing running was pointless. Stupid fence. I shifted my stance, ready to attack at the right moment. I believe you have outlived your usefulness, Enforcer, the leader said, his cronies chuckling in response. Fear coiled around my heart, my hands trembling, but I tightened my grip on my conduit, drawing strength from its familiar presence. I clenched my jaw, refusing to let them see my fear. Reinach shifted into a fighting stance. Power radiated off him. He was ready to spring into action. I whispered a silent prayer to the goddesses, even though I doubted they would listen. The silence stretched, almost tangible weight in the air. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. Desperation squeezed my chest and urged me to find a solution. A spell, a glimmer of hope blossomed in my mind. I froze, a plan forming. It might work against the padlock. I spun to face the gate, hiding behind Reinek's frame. If they saw me trying to summon magic, they'd likely attack. Sucking in a shaky breath, I called to my magic. The solar flames flickered in my chest, making my head throb as I directed them into my conduit. Saka, I hissed. A dull blade of energy spluttered from my conduit, slicing across the padlock. My breath caught as the metal glowed. It hadn't been strong enough to cut through, but if I kill them, the leader ordered. He spoke the words with a chilling nonchalance, as if ordering a coffee, not our deaths. As one, the thugs brandished their weapons. Even in the dim light, I recognized the ominous shapes. Guns. Fear clawed at my insides. Then a molten rage surged within, igniting a fire that blazed through my veins. I wouldn't let these thugs lay a finger on me, and I would never allow them to harm my friend. A strange calm then washed over me, reminiscent of when I basked in the moonlight, and all my fear and exhaustion evaporated. Needles prickled the nape of my neck, and time itself appeared to stretch. In the blink of an eye, I was in front of Reinek, shielding him with my body, driven by a need to defend. White smoke curled through the air as Reinek tossed both of my potions, bright flashes searing my eyes. No. The word was a snarl on my lips. The command shuddered through me, and magic flowed into my hands. The air shimmered, and then the first bullet hit. I flinched, sensing the ripple of impact, but it was not my body that it struck, rather the translucent shield I had summoned. Time flowed again. A cacophony assaulted my ears. Raw power thrummed in my chest, coursing down my arms and pouring into the shield that hung in the air, just large enough to protect the two of us. With each impact, the iridescent shield glowed brighter. The hail of bullets ceased, and my gaze hardened, fixed on those foolish enough to challenge me. A few thugs that I could see through the smoke exchanged uneasy glances, uncertain of whether to charge or flee. I blinked, a weight lifting from me. What am I doing? What is this spell? How could I even? Fire ignited in my veins, and I stumbled as heat surged. I swore this magic was going to incinerate me from the inside out. The shield faltered, and panic gripped me. I struggled to maintain the barrier, and then the spell slipped through my grasp, a sharp pain slicing through my mind, and another stabbed into the base of my skull as the magic violently ripped from my control. Volatile magic crackled through the air, erratic and untamed. Rennet grabbed me as my legs wobbled, and I braced my hands on my thighs. Panting through the drain and the stabbing pain, I had to push through. We weren't safe yet. It was only a flicker at first of ethereal light, almost beautiful, but a heavy weight settled in the pit of my stomach. A shimmering light danced in the air, as if the fabric of reality itself shivered in response to my unpredictable power. An ominous hum grew louder, reverberating in my chest. Reinek pulled me towards the fence as the smoke dissipated, but we had nowhere to go. The thugs paused. A few backed up, their eyes wide. My tongue was too thick to form the words I wanted to scream. "This is your magic," a voice hissed through my mind. "Your fault." The words wrapped around my throat, squeezing until I couldn't breathe. A sharp crack snapped through the air, its force knocking us back. Lightning crashed down from where the wild magic coalesced, shaking the ground beneath me. Burning sulfur stung my nose. The world before me warped, as if I was looking through a distorted lens. I did this. Each word lodged like a knife in my chest. The oppressive air quivered as hairline fractured, spider-webbed out. The dark alley twisted, revealing glimpses of a burning hellscape. Fissures pulsated in a sickly glow, casting eerie shadows that danced on the edge of my vision. Dark tendrils of smoke seeped through the cracks, spilling onto the ground. I could only watch, utterly frozen as it whispered around the thugs' feet before snaking its way around their legs and their body. A few panicked, but the smoke didn't slow. "Is that you?" Reinek hissed. I could only shake my head. I had no idea what it was, but the magic that brushed against my awareness was oily. A deep malevolence drove it. The fractures shrank, and the image of that other world evaporated. I almost wondered if I imagined it. The thugs cried out as the smoke speared into their chest. Their skin began to glow like a smoldering coal. Black tendrils curled around their skin as if their blood had turned to tar. It crept up their necks. Some fought, clawing at their chests, while others surrendered to its power. The smoke faded, but the taint of its touch remained. Their eyes were now wholly black, and their hands transformed into gnarled claws. Beneath the tattered remains of one thug's shirt, I could just make out the cracked black skin that surrounded a glowing rune. Thralls, Rhynek whispered. A vague memory of what that meant scratched at my mind. But thinking hurt. All I knew was that we were in danger. I couldn't submit to the pain. The fractures in the air were nothing more than a smudge as the last of my wild magic faded. But I feared more smoke might appear, and what would happen if it touched Rhynek or me? As one, the thralls turned and set their eyes on us. Rhynek raised his gun, and I flinched at each pull of the trigger. Bullets slammed into the thralls, but it did little to slow them. Black liquid pooled from their wounds. Rhynek swore as he reloaded his gun. The thralls stalked closer, flexing their claws as if they could imagine tearing into us. I had to help. But your magic did this, twisted them. No, I hissed back at that voice. It can't be. Pressure built in my chest. I tried to push the magic back down. Then something within me cracked and I lost my grip on it. Stumbling forward, magic sizzled across my hands and up my arms. Deep in my chest, flames scorched my inside as if the sun itself burned within my ribs. I wrestled with the fire, willing my magic to follow my command. Get back! My voice cracked as I strained to hold on just a bit longer. Fire skidded across my skin, capturing the tension of every single thrall. Then I released it. Expelling all that volatile magic in my body, I forced it down the alley, hoping that it would be enough to spare Rhynek. For one moment, I was strong, powerful, a true witch. This was the power my people wielded, and it was finally mine. My magic cracked and fizzled through the air, a scream ripped from my throat as it burned through my veins. It struck the thralls, their skin hissed as wild flames poured over them. Some clawed in a vain attempt to fight off the magic. A few fell to their knees, but I couldn't stop. I tried to seize control of my magic, but it refused to listen. My legs faltered and I crashed to my knees, magic searing through my body and threatening to devour me. Flames burned in my throat as I screamed again, but I couldn't restrain my magic. The last ounce of it ripped from my core and my vision wavered. A blur of cobalt dashed towards me. Every breath seared my lungs as I slumped to the ground, but my magic didn't care. Hold on, a gentle voice whispered. Something soft and warm nestled against my chest, but I couldn't move. My magic had been sapped. All of the strength in my body failed. Searing pain consumed my mind. A battle cry pierced the air as a feminine figure launched herself at the attackers, slicing through them with twin blades, and I squinted. Indra? Garbled screams and cries of pain echoed through the alley, following more gunfire. Shadows danced, cleaving through the enemy. Darkness crept into my vision. The violet tempest of my magic eased as a soothing voice whispered words I didn't understand. I clung to that voice, clung to it as my magic stormed around me, but I had nothing left to give, so I surrendered to the pain, allowing it to pull me into oblivion. And that is where we are stopping. So that was chapter 13 and 14 of The Last Lunar Witch. It is available in KU, and the paperback will hopefully be out in a couple weeks. This looks nice and fancy. And thank you guys for having me here. Thank you, Katherine. It was a blast.